Yes. So now share. So you are able to see the slides, right?
Yes, sir.
So we'll start our discussion, okay. Yeah, so quick recap, so previous last class, we have done this almost, we have closed one unit kind of a thing, okay. So this local buckling also we have seen, and this is a very important thing, you see, the classification of the sections. So we will come back to this once again when we discuss about beams, okay, and even our columns itself, okay. So now but this is very, very important for you to classify the sections. In IS 800, the table 2, that automatically comes, is very important. Okay, so this plastic section is idealized section, then compact, semi-compact, and then slender. So these slender things are ruled out actually in our, design itself. But if you want to use a slender section, say, and if you want to convert a slender section to semi-compact or compact or something, so what is that you have to do? No. What did we do in our last class? Suppose if I have
Reduce
a
the
some
effective area.
reduce effective area, so something like this, okay. But only a problem is it will be, because this area you are not using, so it will be, uneconomical kind of a thing we will have, okay. So this is the most important thing. So this is what we have seen also, and finally, we have set these 4 sections. They are available in IS 800. So as already I told you also, so whatever tables, whatever things I'm showing you, they are all available in the code itself. If you go to code book, you will get all the details, okay. So now and finally we have made a checklist kind of a thing. So so after every unit, we will have this type of checklist, okay. So if you have understood, if you are able to answer all these questions, okay, so that means you are perfectly fine, so you are doing well, that's all, okay. So fine. So I asked last class, some of you replied, but some of you can ask these questions to yourself. So if you are satisfied, that means it is fine, okay. So now let us go to the next one, that is on the loads on steel structures. So now I know what type of loads they act on steel structures. What type of loads, and then how do we design for these loads. First of all, you have to classify the loads. How many loads are there, and then you see how they act on our steel structure. So this is very, very important. Okay. So in your RCC code also you would have done. You would have seen this. So now, but same thing, we will just recap a quick these things, okay. Now our IS code say clearly specify. So there is a table 4, okay, which is given in our IS code. So you can clearly see this table 4. So our IS code says for steel structures, say you have, of course, there are so many loads are there, but clearly it specifies dead load. DL is a dead load you have to design. Then live load, okay, so which sometimes it is also known as imposed load also, or live load. Then you have wind load, then we have earthquake load, then we have accidental loads, okay. So accidental loads also are there. So now then we are having CL, one is a crane load, we say. So all these things have to be considered in our design, okay. So clearly our code specifies, if you see our IS 800, so what type of loads you have to design and what standards you say, so you have to use in design also, the code specifies. So like for example, if you see our IS 800, say, okay. Where is it? Yes. So this is our IS, the 800. So you can see clearly, what are the loads. So you can see section 3. You are able to see, right? These are the loads which you have to use. Dead load, imposed load, then wind load, earthquake load, erection loads, accidental loads, then secondary effects, they say temperature, differential settlements. Then finally, it also says dead loads, say, they all should be calculated from IS 875 part 1. Then the imposed load should be taken from IS 875 part 2. Okay. So like this, snow load, then wind load, say IS 875 part 3, then earthquake load you have to take from 1893 part 1. So our IS code clearly, the IS 800 specifies which code book you have to refer to calculate these loads, and which standard has to be used, and what combination we will discuss later. So it gives all the details itself. Okay. So now let us go back to our this itself. So now so we do, so let us discuss this date. So now this, before going this one, so as already I told you, so we have what we call as a crane load. So generally crane load is used only for special things. So you are able to see this crane here. What do you call this one? Now So what do you call this? Here also we have actually. What is the name of this one? No. Or you can see here you followed, right, this I section, which is supporting this crane. So what is this? Is basically a crane which is used in, if you come to our structures lab also, you will see to shift the loads from here, there, and others also. So now this load, what is this side? You can see one I section right here. So where the crane is moving actually. What do you call this thing? Now, what do you call this I section which is supporting the crane? Now, or this entire systems, if you want to design, what do you call this entire one? No. No, what do you call this one? Okay, so this entire thing design comes under which one? So he is also like a girder only. Okay, I will give you a clue. So what type of girder this is? Plate girders you would have heard. What type of girder this is? Have you? So what type of girder? So any of you have an idea, or first time you are seeing this one? Is this first time?
Yes, sir. First.
Okay, so this we call as gantry girder. You follow. So gantry girder we say. So there, this design becomes very important. So if you are designing a gantry girder or something, then this crane load, how much this comes, right? So this also has to be included in our design. Suppose if you are designing ordinary steel building and others, then you don't require a gantry girder. You can do the regular design itself. Okay. So this we will not be, this one, if time permits, in the end of this course, we will see how to design a gantry girder also. Okay, but that is in the later step. Okay, so the CL you can, for time being, you can ignore it. That becomes very important for gantry girders and other designs. Okay, and now coming to this dead loads, say. So now how to do this dead load, how to calculate this one. Now here one more important thing nowadays, if you see our IS 800 or all the Euro codes, every code say. So this word loads, they are replacing. They are not calling as a load. They call as action. Okay, this is a in our IS 800 also you have the actions they say. Okay, so this action is a word which is synonym you followed it. We replace loads with actions. Direct action, wind action, earthquake action, so like that we followed it in the code also. They have been mentioned as actions, not as a load, something like that. Okay, so now here so the dead load. So now if you see the loads which act on the structure, so this is a typical building. Say here I'm showing like ordinary steel building if you have. So if you see all the loads which are acting on the structure, say, so obviously the first one will be dead load. So dead load is anyway the weight of the self weight of the structure, and which things are not moving, say, so they all come under dead loads. Okay, then apart from that, you also will be having live loads, like the furniture, the people which are moving. So live load definition means it is not like a it will not move. It will not, although the name is live, but it doesn't have any acceleration or velocity or anything like that. But things, the live loads, this one, people, furniture, even on the roofs, like rain, all kinds of things are there. They come under, you see, this live load kind of a thing. Then apart from that, we also will have the wind load also will be there. So wind, you can see in this figure. So wind, you followed it, is also very, very the important thing, the wind load. Then we also have this earthquake load also, where the ground shaking and other things also will be there. So they are also very important. So these loads are all wind, earthquake, this dead load, live load, all of them comes under the direct actions or the direct loads which act on the structure. Apart from that, there is also what we call as indirect action also. Okay, where indirectly also load may come up. So like for example, if you see this building, say, so you are seeing, right, all the three columns, one column here, second column, third column, say. Suppose due to some problem, nearby somebody has dug something. So then see, some of you mute, your device. So some of you have not muted. Nischal single, please mute yourself. Nischal. No, okay, thank you. Fine. No. So now this
Excuse me,
is
sir.
sometimes. Hello.
Yes, sir. Sir, can snow load be classified as a live load?
No, snow load is also, it is a no, that is a separate code is there. See, dead load, live load is a different. Okay, so our IS standard, what says live load means, people, furniture, they all come separate. Now snow load will come separate actually, because snow load, you have to design for this snow only in the Himalayas. In Chennai, we don't do any design for snow. So for to calculate snow load, we have a separate, the standard itself. So what I'm trying to say, whether it is a live or whether it is a dead load or something, so that our IS standard, defines. So we have a separate standard for snow loads. Okay. So is it fine?
Yes, sir, it's okay. I got it.
Okay. So these are the loads. So now here what happens is, so anyway, these are all comes under direct actions. So direct action means directly the load is acting on your structure. There may be indirect action also will come. So indirect action comes, let us say we are having 3 columns. See, somebody has a dug, nowadays, one apartments are there nearby, simply they dug without even checking properly. So what happens, if this place, if they have dug some, full road or maybe something else. So what happens, this column suddenly you follow, right? It may tilt or something may happen. So what happens when this column tilts, say, okay? So then obviously, so this will go down. So automatically what happens, so this gives you differential settlement. Okay, so differential settlement will come. So this also may cause, some type of additional load on other elements itself. So temperature, settlements, all of them comes under, the indirect actions. So they are not like a load which is acting directly on the structure, but this is due to some other, the mechanisms. So totally, if you want to say, loads can be classified into direct loads, indirect loads. So directly they are acting on the structure, indirect means this itself. Now dead load, live load, wind load or snow load, say, it is depending on our IS, the standards. We will see what do you mean by live load and what do you see by dead load also. Now, so now this is what our IS code, the IS 800 says. Okay, clearly this is also I have taken from IS our this itself. So it says dead loads, live loads. So this is what it defines. Part 3, earthquake load, erection loads, accidental loads, secondary effects. So all these things should be, you have to include in our design. Okay, so now under load types, say our code also defines, you can define into direct, indirect also. That is one type of classification. Another type of clarification is 2 types of loads are there. One is a gravity, which acts in the vertical direction. Okay, then lateral load, which acts in the horizontal directions. So gravity load means a dead load, weight of the structure, live loads, floor load, roof, rain load, snow loads. All of them comes under the gravity kind of a load, or the vertical load. Lateral load means wind. Essentially, you can see wind will act in the horizontal direction. So wind, even earthquake also. Okay, so all of them comes under the lateral direction. Even earth pressure, water pressure, right? If you are building a retaining wall, say the soil and other things, it will be in the horizontal directions. So there is another type of a classification also is that apart from direct and indirect, we also have these type of classifications also. So now let us see all this detailed this one. So now for dead loads, code clearly specifies you have to follow IS 875 part 1. Okay, I will show you the code also now. So IS 875 part 1. So this is our IS 875 part 1 1987. It has been confirmed also. Okay, so if you see this one side clearly, I suggest all of you please read once this code. So if you can see the sections, say, so they will get, so this code is done like this. So this code will provide you the unit weight of the building materials. So all cast iron, acoustical material, asbestos, cement, concrete, iron, everything details will be there. So table 1 contains building materials. Then we have building parts components, building parts, that one. Then store all kinds of miscellaneous textile, paper, everything will be there in this code itself. So here already you see they give like, so these are the tables. So unit weight of the materials, they give you like you see. I think we can see the slide also. Maybe it will be better now. Now, so this one, so like from the dead loads, I have copied this from that itself. So asbestos, cement sheets are there. So the density is 120 to 156 Newton per meter square. See, if I am having a brick, say, so brick is a 21600 is a Newton per meter cube actually. So they will give you, this type of, the unit weight or something like that. So now if I want to calculate the weight of a wall, say like 10 meter by 10 meter wall. So what is that you have to do? Now, See, if I have a wall, say I want to calculate weight of the wall. So what is that you have to do now? So this code will give you the unit weights, the material density or something you have. So the dimensions of the building you calculate actually. Okay. So dimensions you calculate what should be the length, weight or something like that, or volume, thickness and other things you calculate. So you multiply this by this material densities. So you will get, you see, the total load. So this is how we have to do our designs. Okay. So you can calculate the dead load. So you can find out it's a lime mortar, everything will be given there. So you have to use this and you have to find out the load. Now in steel structures, there we have a big, the problem here. See, in steel structures, can how do you know the dead load before starting? Can you calculate dead load in steel structures? See, what is the design about? Design is essentially obtaining the dimensions. How do you will obtain the dimensions? See, like for example, if you are designing a tension member, so as already I told it, sigma is P by A. Yeah. So now P contains your dead load also. So now what happens? What is that you have to do? So in the starting, you have to assume some dead load. Okay, something you assume. Then you calculate sigma y is known to you. Then based on that, you calculate area, and then from the steel tables, you select something. Okay. Then once you know the steel tables, if you have selected the I section, say. So automatically in the I section, there is one weight per, the first column will be there. The weight will come. So once again, you have to calculate whether the dead load of that one, whether it satisfies or not. So you have to do, iterative fashion. So dead load calculating for steel is a very, very, little bit tricky kind of a thing, because you don't know what elements you are going to use, whether you want to go with I section or whether you want to go with the channel sections, join them by this one or something like that. So sometimes in design calculations, and many times, we see like, for proof checking and other things, they would have assumed some dimensions. They would have calculated something. But finally, when they go back, there will be something like 30% you followed, right? Changes will be there. They would have started with some dead load, calculated the dimensions, and they would have done the design. But once again, when you substitute the dimensions and you calculate the revised weights of the structure, say, then there will be something like 30% you see the variations comes. Okay, so it has to be done in a iterative fashion, because we don't know the dimensions. If you don't know the dimensions, you can't calculate the dead load. Without calculating dead load, you can't find this dimension. So these are all interlinked, that kind of a thing. So this is the most important thing in steel structures, even in concrete also, but concrete is slightly different. Okay, so fine. Now the next comes, the live loads. So now for live loads, our code clearly specifies IS 875 part 2. So let us see what is IS 875 part 2. Okay, so I will show you the code also. I will send it to you in WhatsApp also to all of you. This is our IS 875 part 2. You are able to see, right? So you are able to see the PDF, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
See here,
Yes, sir.
but here the most important thing you see here, the title part 2, what is written here? Live load or imposed loads?
Imposed.
So now the terminology is different. Like one of you asked, snow load is a live load or something. So this is a little bit terminology. So this has been changed recently. Okay, so instead of calling as a live load, say, they call this as imposed loads kind of a thing. Okay, so with this, so now let us see what are its contents. So anyway, these are the people who has done this, the code, the committee, that names will be there. So these are the things actually. So now if I see the loads, so they have, what is the imposed load, then reduction imposed, then posting floor capacity loads due to rain, dust load. You can see here, impact allowance per lifts, hoists, so all these details, crane load also, this gives you this code itself. So now here, so what I suggest you all of you to read once actually. Okay, it will be very nice, when you're doing for the first time, say. So line, this is like a clause, IS code, you followed it. It is like a legal, the document itself. So you have to read everything, line by line. So it will be very, the interesting kind of a thing. So here, what they do is like this. So all the whatever buildings we are having, say. So this code divides them into 8 type of classifications. One is assembly building here. You can see, right? Assembly building. So assembly building means, It is a part like, you know, function hall or maybe amusement where people gather, say recreation, social, like religion, you know, all kinds of things comes under, you see, the assembly buildings. Then they have business building, the second one, 2.2.2. Okay, so they have defined also business building, offices, banks, you know, courthouses, libraries, they define. Then we have business buildings, then we have office buildings also. You can see the words are very, very carefully, you know, it is very difficult whether it is a business or whether it is office building. So you have to see this one, like you see administration, clerical work, you know, for handling money, telephone, telegraphic operations, you know. So these the bookkeeping, sorting papers, typing, so they come under office building. Business buildings is slightly different. Okay, like a library is a business building, but whereas they followed it, so it have to be different. Then we have educational building. So educational building means school, college, you know, like our IITs, your classrooms or BSB you followed, they are all under educational building. Then we have industrial buildings also, power plants, refineries, you know, factories and others. Then we have institutional buildings also. So, you know, these is like medical or other treatment. Okay, it is like hospitals, you know, custodial institution, like, you know, jails, prisons and other things, they come under institutional buildings. Then we have mercantile buildings. Okay, so you can see shops, stores, markets, you know, like you have a shopping malls and others, that comes under this one. Then finally we have a residential building, that is where we are all staying, your houses, kitchen and others. So there are something like you followed it, some 8 or 7, you know, the classifications are there. And of course, sorry, the last one is storage buildings. Okay, so where you are using for storage, you know, it is like a go down kind of a thing. So cold storages, all kinds of storages are there now, you know, agricultural things, you know, so many things will be there, like nowadays Amazon, right, they have a go down the storage building. So 8 classifications are there. So you please go through once, study nicely this one: assembly building, business building, offices, then education, then industrial buildings, institution, mercantile, residential buildings, and then this storage buildings. So the code clearly says like this. So now residential building, if it is there, say, okay. So now like what you are all sitting in your houses, right? So now in your house, say, you know, you should know like all rooms and kitchens actual. Okay, so the load is, you know, the live, that imposed load is 2 kilonewton per meter square. Now here our this code, you know, what it says is our IS 875. So designs, you have to apply this imposed load, you have to do as a uniformly distributed load also, and you calculate the stresses and other things. Okay, then the same load you also should model as a concentrated load, and you have to apply at critical positions. So you model the load as UDL, you do all the calculations. You model the load as a concentrated load, apply at critical locations, you do the calculations. Whichever is higher, say, use that in the design. That is, you know, to have more safety kind of a thing itself. So the code says UDL, but our dead load, if you see, they don't specify that you have to model as a UDL only. Okay, but when it comes to imposed loads, our code clearly mentions you model the imposed load as a UDL, you do the calculations, you model the load as a concentrated load, apply at critical locations, and you do the calculations. Whichever is you follow, right, you have to be more, you know, the safety kind of a thing. So this is how it gives. So toilet, what is the load? 2 kilonewton per meter square. Then you know, corridors, passages, staircases, balconies, what should be the value? Like, you know, hotels, hostels, you know, they will give all these details. So I suggest all of you, you know, like educational buildings, like our BSB building science block, classroom, lecture room, you know, so you have to 3 kilonewton per meter square. Then dining rooms, offices, and you have to model this load as a UDL, plus you also have to model the load as a concentrated load, apply at critical points. You have to do the calculations, whichever is higher, use that, and then you do the design itself. Okay, so this is how our code gets. So I suggest all of you can browse through this IETS 875 part 2. So if you go through, you will get a nice you know, the understand. You will see, you know, what do you mean by officially. This is a legal document. Okay, so what is the definition of industrial building? What's the definition of this one? So you can go through this details itself. Okay, so let us go back to our this itself slide. This slide, yes. So this is how is it. So this is what I just copied that page, you know, in the slide itself. So residential building, hotels, you know, both the things. So they will give you UDL. They also will give you concentrated. You have to do analysis for both. Whichever is higher, you should use in the design. That's what the code says. Now another important the load of this imposed load of, they also give on the roofs. See, sometimes, you know, if you are having a flat roof, say, you know, that is a flat roof, what should be the load? Then you may have a sloping roofs also. See, nowadays, you know, because architecture, say, they have a nice roofs, they give sloping things because they may look nicely. So if it is more than 10 degrees, what should be the load you have to take? So this also, this table is also there in our IS 875 part 2. So you can go through this code itself. Then another most important thing in our code, what it says is, if you are designing a multi-story building, say, okay, like 10 floors, or you see this one. So now the idea, what they say is, the live loads, okay, they are the imposed loads, sorry, the imposed loads, the probability, you see all the floors loaded with maximum live load. So this will be very, very less. Okay. So what they say is, to make the design more economical, they say that you can reduce the load. See, like for example, if the number of floors carried by the member is 1, say, okay, above there is only one, floor only is there. So then the percentage reduction is 0 itself. Suppose above there are 2 floors are there, say, then it says 10% you can reduce. 3 floors are there, say 20% has to be reduced, and over 5 and to 10, over to 10, you can reduce the load by 50%. The main assumption here is all the floors will not be loaded with the imposed load at the same time. Okay, that is how the classification or this reduction also our code gives. So this one table, the one last in the end, they have given one the appendix, the loading details. So if it is a roof, say, suppose the load on the roof is 30. Here it is a 40, 50. So these are the imposed loads which are acting on the each the floor. And now for this column, so this column will carry the load, the imposed load on this column is 30. Okay, so this one comes. Now this column, say, which you are seeing here, it carries this floor, roof plus this itself. So what they do is, so 30 is this one, this is 40. So 30 plus 40, and then you can reduce it by 10%. That's what is here we have written. Then this column, say, when it comes to this one, so then you have 30 plus 40 plus 50, the total one, and 20% you followed, right? 0.8 times only will be acting on this column. Then what comes to here, 30% reduction, 40% reduction, and 40% reduction. I think maximum is 40. But if it is more than 10 only, it may be 50. Like if we say this column, say, okay, 50% reduction comes here. So this is how the code also clearly specifies you can reduce the the imposed load, assuming that all the floors will not be loaded at the same time, because the probability is very, very less actual. Okay, this is how you calculate our imposed loads. So this is just a design example I'm showing you here. This example is available in Duggal's book or several textbooks also. So to have a clarity, say, okay, so now this is a typical building. Okay, so it is something like a 7-story building is there. So now we have to calculate the imposed load and other things. So now these are details. So now the live loads on each floor is 4,000 Newton per meter square. Then the live load on the roof, say, it is 1500 Newton per meter square. Then we have a dead load also, which is a floor finish, slab and beam, say, it is a 3000 Newton per meter square we have. Then height of each story, say, 3.2 meters. Then we have spacing of the columns is around 4 meter by 4 meter. You have every column is like this. So now we have to calculate the imposed loads or the service load, the total load which comes on the column. Now if I see this GH, which is the the topmost thing itself. Okay, so now here that is a roof. Okay, now live load on the roof is how much? So clearly it has been mentioned here, 1500 Newton per meter square. Now dead load, so dead load of each floor finish, slab and beam is 3000 actual. Okay, so the dead load is 3000. So now the total load which is coming on the floor is 4500. So this column, whatever GH, okay, so this has to be designed to take this much amount of load itself. Now when it comes to FG, that is this column, the next column. Okay, so now we have, so as our code says, how much you have to reduce? Now above one floor. Now how much it has to be reduced? The live load on each floor is 4000. On the roof it is 1500. Okay, from all the floors it is 4000. So now how much you have to reduce when you are having one floor above? Now for this GHFG column, you are having two. One comes from this one, and it is carrying the roof also. Two are there above that. So how much it has to be reduced? The table what it says. So because this column is carrying two floors, one is a roof plus other floor. So how much the load has to be reduced? Can you see here? What is this value? 10%. 10% actually. That's why we multiply by 0.9 into 4000 actually. Okay, so this turns out to the dead load is going to remain same. Dead load, there is no reduction. Only for live load, only code says a reduction. So this is the load. 6,600 is the load from the floor. Now when it comes to EF, say that is this column E times EF actually. And now EF dead load is not going to change. This is going to remain everywhere this one. So on this EF, say now it is carrying one floor, this floor, then this floor, then this floor. 3 floors it is carrying. So 3 floors means the load can be reduced by 20%. So now we have so you multiply this by put to a 0.8, so you will get the load. Now similarly DE, say this column. Okay, so it is carrying 1, 2, 3, 4, including the roof actual. Okay, so 4 means 30% reduction. So like this, you can calculate all the for each and everything you can calculate, and maximum it is not a 10-story. If it is over 10 only, you will have 50% reduction. If it is between 5 to 10, only 40% only the calculations will be there. So these are all the loads which are coming from you followed, right? These things itself. So now so if I want to calculate service load on the column BC, so column BC is somewhere you followed it here. So now I have to add up all the numbers. So that is 4,500 which comes from the floor, then 6,600 which comes from this one, then 6,200, 5,800, 5,400, 5,400. So this is the loads. We have to add up all the details. That is a summation of 3,000 plus 1,500 is 4,500. 3,000 plus 3,600 is 6,600. 3,000 plus 3,200 is 6,600. So this you sum it up. So you multiply by, these are all Newton per meter square. So the columns spacing is 4 by 4 say. So you multiply by this one. So you will get the total load which acts on the column is the BC. So this is how we calculate. Now suppose if I want to calculate AB column, say, so then I have to add all these loads. Okay, so everything I have to add and then multiply by 4 by 4. So I will get my load itself. So 628 kilonewtons is the load which comes on this column AB. That is for what you have to design. Now the topmost column, say, so it is very small. What is the load on the topmost column GH? Tell me. What is the total load on the column GH? No need to do any calculation. You can tell me what you have to multiply. What is the value? See for column GH, what is the load? Service load. See this table and tell me for the GH. That is just only roof is there. That's all. Now, how much will be the load on GH? Are you there? All of you are there, right? So if people are there, maybe. So now what is the load on this column? Yes, all of you are there. Yes. Now how do you calculate? So what is the load which is what is the dead load acting on this GH? See this table and tell me. What is the dead load acting on this GH? What is the dead load?
3,000.
Live load how much?
1,500.
So if I sum up, how much it turns out to be?
4,500.
So now what is that you have to do? 4,500, and what is the column spacing? 4 meters. This direction, that direction. Okay, so 4 by 4. So this is the load which is acting on GH actual. Okay. Now what is the load acting on FG? Tell me. Next column. FG. This is this portion. Tell me what is the load acting on the FG?
So 3,600 plus 3,000.
No, this is the dead loads are both are 3,000, 3,000 only. Okay. And now what should we have? So finally tell me the number.
6,600.
6,600. That is only for this one. Plus you have to add the roof also. What is the load which is coming from GH also you have to add. So from GH how much it is coming? 4,500 multiplied by 4 by 4. So this is the load which is acting on FG. Okay. Now, if you want to calculate EF, say, so EF will be simply, you see, what will be on EF? Tell me. So in the summation, another quantity also will come. What is that number? No.
6200.
6200. It's very simple. Okay. So 6200 multiplied by 4 by 4 actually. That's all. So this is how you can calculate. But the most important thing you should understand is this reduction actually. So this is a very followed. This is very important. So sometimes I have seen in many exams, you know, our quiz 1 or quiz 2, when we ask them to calculate live loads, so many people, many students, they forget this reduction. Simply, you know, they will add 1500, 4000, 4000, 4000. You know, you sum it up everything actually. So that is, you know, code doesn't allow. So code says you can reduce, you know, to be more economical, and because the probability that all the loads will not be, you know, same input at the same point of a time. So you have this reduction actually. Okay. So is it fine? How to calculate live load? The imposed load are the total loads. No. If you have any questions, please ask me. So there are no questions. You know, is it clear? This is how to calculate dead load and live load. Okay, so I hope that everybody has this one. So you just go through the codes. Maybe we will have a tutorial next week. Okay, I will give you some assignments and this one. So once you solve, things will be easy, and it is not that you followed it difficult. Just you have to follow the code. You will get the results itself. Now we will go to the next load. That is the wind load, which is much more complicated, you know, compared to other things. Okay, the wind load. So now nowadays you followed it. The wind load is a, what type of load is wind? Is it a static load or it is a dynamic load? Wind, essentially.
Dynamic.
It is basically, by definition, it is a dynamic load. Okay, but our code book you followed, right? We don't do dynamic analysis. We do static only. But code also says you have to do dynamic analysis, but only for some special buildings or some special cases, you have to do a full dynamic analysis itself. So nowadays you are seeing, right? Do you think wind loads, you know, so nowadays you are seeing it in Chennai or also every year we are getting now so many cyclones. All of you agree, right? In Orissa, when you are near the coast region, say, so many cyclones are coming nowadays. So we had, I think, you know, I forgot the name in Chennai. Anybody of remember? Tamil Nadu, you see, we had a cyclone, right, in the month of December. I forgot the name of the cyclone. Any of you remember cyclone names? One cyclone was there in Vizag long back. Hudhud cyclone, you remember? Hudhud or something. Full Vizag airport itself was, you know, completely damaged actually. Okay, during these cyclones. So this is a very followed, right? A problem nowadays. You know, this is designed for wind or designed for this cyclones. So this is a very important thing if you are residing in coastal areas and places, you know, where there is a chance. Say, so you have to do this design. Okay. So now we all know whenever there is a cyclone, say, you follow, right, the verandas, the roof, and other things. Say, it just you know, goes away because of a cyclone, because of this huge, you know, the wind speeds. So now let us see how to calculate this wind load. I will just brief you. You followed it. How to do this easy, you know, the wind load. Now you know, right? This is how a wind happens. So once wind enters your house, say, you may be having windows, doors, and other things also. So you will see the wind comes up. You know, you will have a opening pressure will be there. Then on the top of the roofs, you will have a suction also. So all kinds of things will be there. And sometimes if the wind speeds are so high in villages, we have seen the full house may itself, you fall, right, overturning also can happen if they are not connected nicely to the you know, the foundation. So, and then you know, we all know, right, if there is no shielding, say, from high wind, you see, this also makes a lot of difference. So if your house is, if you are having nice trees are there, or some mountain, your backside of something, then you will be having, you know, this wind effects will be a little bit lesser also. Okay. So these are some of the effects I'm showing you. There is a like you know, cyclone architecture also is there. You followed how to design, you know, your building architectures. Okay, for cyclone resistant architecture, they say. So a lot of things are there. Okay, so if you are having these type of openings, a veranda, you followed, right? So there is a chance of, you know, this type of thing, and your this may go up, and the connections are not proper. So if it is a truss, say, the connections are not proper between purlins and others, the whole thing may go up itself. Now another problem, what happens in wind also, whenever you are having a cyclones, not only just the wind, but you also will be having huge rain, and then you see this is storm surge we say. So this also comes into picture. So if you are located on low level, although your structure may be fine for wind, but you will be submerged in this water itself. So this is also very important thing. So design for cyclone is not only just making the structure safe for wind, but this also, the elevation, this also matters a lot. If you are located on this one's a storm surge, it may even this problem also may come up. So both these things have to be handled. Okay, so now this is how the windstorm. So the definition of windstorm. Okay, there are several scales are there. One is a Beaufort scale, which in our India, we all use this type of scale. There is another scale, Samson, hurricanes, these scales in the US or somewhere they use, and tornadoes. Okay, so this is some Japan or China you followed it. They also give these type of scales. So now you can define what do you mean by calm wind actually. What do you mean by calm wind? What is the mean speed? Now, what do you mean by calm wind? What is the speed for a calm wind? Slow, very calm. Now, see this table and tell me what is the velocity. This is in meter per second. This is in kilometer per hour. Okay. So now what is a calm wind? Now, what is the velocity? See this table. What is the number we have?
2 meters per second.
0 to 1 meter kilometer per hour say, or 0 to 0.2 meter per second we come as a calm wind. Now which is a storm here? So for storm, what is the value to be classified that wind into storms? So what is the value? What should be the wind speed? If you write in kilometer per hour say, how much is the speed? How much is the speed? Can you read this thing? Beaufort scale.
89 to 102 kilometer per hour.
Okay, so that is what we call as a storm. Then violent storm means 103 to 170. Now if it is more than 118 say, then it is we call as, you followed it, the hurricane kind of a thing. So this is a definition. And here another most important thing what you should understand, this velocity of wind, it varies with height actually. So our standard is generally they measure at 10 meter height above the surface. So this is our norm they use. Okay, so whenever they are saying wind speed say, so wind speed varies with the height. Okay, so if you are going 30 meter or 20 meters, wind speed may be different because of the boundary layer effect or something like that. So generally the convention is in all the codes we use this 10 meter. So all the wind anemometers say, which measure the wind, they all will be put up 10 meter high above the surface. So these speeds are measured at 10 meter above the surface. So this is used as a standard. So if you are 10 meter above, if you see the wind speed is 118, you classify into a hurricane. If you see at light 1 to 5 say, it is classified as a light year. So this is our design terminology. So this all of you should remember. Okay, so when I'm saying wind velocity say, wind velocity is this much. Okay, we all know wind velocity varies with height, but the convention is whenever we are saying, so it means it's a 10 meter height they would have measured. Okay, this is like a standard if you want to compare or something like a standardization. Now similarly we have other type of things which we don't in our India we use, you followed it. This is a convention Beaufort scale, which is a classical thing which we use in our the windstorm classifications also. So now this is how the wind. So if you have anemometer say, right, anemometer or anemogram. So this is an instrument which measures wind velocity. Okay, so these instruments will be put up at what height? Just now I told you what height they will be put up.
10 meter.
10 meter. Okay, so this is a classification. So 10 meter height only you have to measure. Okay, so this is how the wind looks like. You can see it will be this type of, you followed it, irregular shape. It looks like this. So it will be having a mean value, the mean wind we say. that also V bar, if I then we will be having a fluctuation also. So some fluctuations also will come up in this data itself. So these how you see the wind anemometer data set looks like this. And now if I plot this wind velocity with respect to height, so people have measured 5 meter, 10 meter, 20 meter, 30 meter, 40 meter. So you will see this type of wind profile actual. So it will, of course, it oscillates like this, it wavy kind of a nature you will see. And finally, as the height is increased, say the waviness decreases and becomes more or less the constant kind of a thing, it happens actually. Okay, so this portion, say why this happens now, why you are seeing a variation in the speed very close to the ground now. Now very close to the ground, it is because of surface friction with our earth surface and other things. So wind speed it reduces, but as it keeps on you follow it increases. So this is what they say, this portion say where how much distance or how much height our surface topography or the friction, that is our earth surface, influences the wind. So this sometimes there is a technical term. What do you call this term, this layer? Now any of you have any idea? Now you people would have done fluid mechanics or some course, right? Other courses also. Now, so what do you call this place? Now, so this layer is something like, it shows you the effect of surface topography or the earth surface on wind velocity. Okay, so this portion we call as now. Have you heard this word, atmospheric boundary layer? Okay, so this is a term we use, atmospheric boundary layer. So this is like a layer where you will see the wind, it gets affected due to the surface topography or the friction and other kind of things, topographical effects we say, atmospheric boundary condition. Now once it has reached some depth, say okay, some height, then the wind velocities, it remains, fluctuations also will decrease, it remains more or less the constant. So this velocity, where velocity is remaining constant, it we call as gradient velocity. Okay, so these are all technical terms we use. And the height at which the velocity becomes constant, so this height is known as gradient height. Okay, so these are very the important things in we will be using gradient velocity, atmospheric boundary layer, gradient height. So these are some technical terms which are associated with the wind design. Okay, and now so this you can see here. And now influence of terrain and topography is shown in this figure itself. So you can see here what is how the wind speed is looking like now. What is the the atmospheric boundary layer, how much effect it has. And suppose if I take a house here, trees are there, and now here you can see how this boundary layer here. Now here you see the boundary layer here. You can see the boundary layer here as even that gradient height and gradient that velocity also. Now what is happening where the wind speed is very high now. 1, 2, 3, 4 among 4, say where is the wind speed very high now?
Sir, 1.
The 1 means this is 1. If I take this as 1, say this is 2, then this is 3 and 4. So where is wind speed very high now?
Sir, in 1 near the open sea.
Wind speed is high. What is the wind speed here? The boundary layer you can see. So the speed of wind is like this. So if I take Vg as 1, say like Vg is some constant value. So now here the how much, what is the boundary layer? See the surface here, there is no opening, there is a terrain or something is not there. So this boundary layer affects, say how much is the velocity here now? 0.8 times Vg. Okay, now when it comes to here, of course finally everything goes to Vg only, because as height increases, because everything has to remain constant, like as I told you, right, the terrain and other things will be there. As height increases, finally everything has to remain constant wind actual. So if you are here, if you are here, if you are on the top of the mountain, if you are this side of the mountain, after some height everything has to remain constant only. Okay, the Vg. But now this is our boundary layer actually here. Now here the boundary layer, what is the value here? Approximately this has been shown here at this one depth, what one at this one. So it is 0.8 times Vg actually. Now here what is the velocity for this 2? So what's the velocity? So this dotted line is same as this one, the open sea. You follow, right? The dotted lines. Whether it has increased or decreased. Here the dotted line, whatever is plotted, right? This is our open sea. We are comparing with that one. Now you tell me what is happening, and this is also the open sea. That is 1. Now you tell me where things are very high, which is the most dangerous.
Third one.
Where? No, please tell me one second.
Third
please.
one.
Third one. So what is the third one? Where the structure is located?
On the hill crest.
So on the top of the hill, you followed, right? So now on the top of the hill, what happens when I compare this 3 and 1? Say what is happening? Topography, what it is trying to do? What is the velocity of this boundary layer? Say what is it trying to do? What happened because of topography? So your wind speed Vg is the gradient velocity, say, which is a constant kind of a thing, because when there is a topography and if you are located on top of the hill, so your velocity gets amplified or de-amplified. It amplifies or de-amplifies?
Get amplified.
It amplifies. But if you are in an open sea, say, how it amplifies or de-amplifies?
De-amplifies.
Now for the second case, say, when you are located, see your house is here, backside your house is a hill actual. Now what is the de-amplification or amplification?
De-amplification.
De-amplification. Now if your house is located after the hill actual, how much is the velocity?
0.4.
0.4. So now which is the most safest? You tell me. 1, 2, 3, 4 for wind.
3.
3 is the safest.
Safest.
Safest
is
highest
0.4.
is 3. So highest is 3, but the safest place to build your structure, if some of you have given option, like in the open sea or in the open area, then this area, then 3, then 4, so where you will build your house.
Fourth one.
Fourth one. Why? Because the wind speed is less. So wind speed is less, wind force will be less. If wind force is less, then your design dimensions will be less. So you will be at a much you followed, right? Of course, here in this problem, the wind is blowing this direction. Then only it is valid. Suppose if wind was blowing in this direction, then which is the safest place? Tell me. If wind is blowing in this direction, which 4 or 3 or 2 or 1? Which one you will take?
2.
2. Excellent. Okay, so if it wind is blowing from this direction, you just reverse this figure. 0.4 will come this side, 0.6 will come this side actually. Okay, so this is how the classifications. So the topography, the terrains, it has a lot of influence on the this one. So what influence it has? You please remember these words: atmospheric boundary layer, okay, then gradient height, and then you see gradient friction. But one thing is, whether you are a topography, wherever you are there, once you reach certain heights at 200 meter, 300 meter, whatever this one, everything has to remain constant actual. Okay, so this is you followed it, becomes a constant, that gradient velocity or something like this. So the topography, terrains, it has a lot of influence on this wind speeds, and of course our design also it depends on these things also. Okay. So I think already we have done. Okay. So generally in wind, we go this wind tunnel tests. I think you followed it already. Our time is done. Okay, so I will stop here. We will continue in our next class. Okay, so if you have any questions, you please ask. Now, so if you have any questions, you can ask me now. Okay.